Hey there, Pokemon trainers. Welcome back. This is the January challenge here at Balance Patch. And despite what's being printed out on our papers, it is only a challenge.
Yep. I mean, there's so many people here today that you could almost call it a cup.
Perhaps. I mean, especially if the weather wasn't supposed to get bad, I'm sure that we'd see a lot more. But the forecast right now for our players has mostly been sunny with a side of rain, as we have our standings, and you may recognize a couple of names here as players that have not been featured on stream yet, actually.
Yeah, there's actually at least 3 Worlds competitors in our current top 8 who are contending for top cut, as we did have a 5-round tour of Swiss and then going to a top 8 cut. So you have Adrian Hurley, John Lyons, Anthony Lonergan, and Stefan Mott, and I believe Keon Seon also at 2-0. I think Ethan, Rockwell, Jonathan are currently fighting at 1-1. So is Jacob and so is Chris. So everyone's still in a very comfortable range to get in top cut if they were to continue winning matches.
All right, well, that's an update on our standings. Let's go ahead and take a look at our next matchup, as we will be featuring Jonathan versus Jacob. And we will be also having a little bit of a weather forecast here once again. I'm starting to notice some trends. And no snow yet on the field, thankfully. But it is supposed to get kind of gross out there, so stay safe if you're at home watching.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, we saw the weather war with the traditional Groudon and Kyogre from Generation 3, but we're having a little bit more of a modern renaissance. We have a Pelipper coming in, so let's see Jonathan's team real quick.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned like a modern renaissance. I think this is a very unique adaptation of the Zamazenta teams that have been floating around. You do still have the support of Chien-Pao with the Sword of Ruin ability to lower the defenses on the opposing side of the field. But then you also have the combination of a Pelipper and a Urshifu Rapid Strike and a Ting-Lu there to round things out to make things a fun, rainy time.
I would like to point out that the Zamazenta is actually running Iron Defense Body Press, which isn't or hasn't been utilized as often, especially at regionals.
Yeah.
Typically, it's been running that Y guard to really protect its teammates from those spread type attacks from the horses and otherwise. You have Origin Pulse, Water Spout, Groudon as well. The Pelipper is actually going to be the one running the Y guard, and we actually have to look at this Ting-Lu. Ting-Lu was very good back in Regulation C when it was able to shut off those lower power Pokemon on special attacks, but now in this higher power format, you were able to just shut off certain restricted Pokemon's output.
Unfortunately for Ting-Lu, I'm not quite convinced this is the matchup for it, as if we take a look at Jacob's team, not only is Jacob running the Koraidon variant of Sun, so a very physically powerful Pokemon, not going to be using that special attack that Ting-Lu's ability would drop, but with the presence of the Gouging Fire, the Brute Bonnet, I think there's a lot of physical damage pressure here that may keep Ting-Lu on the bench. And to round that out, we have Munkidori and Murkrow, which are 2 very unique Pokemon. Murkrow has been known in the past to be the prankster user you run if you want to run Quash. Typically, you'll see it with a Eviolite instead of that Focus Sash. However, with the power level of everything so high right now, I think that Focus Sash just guarantees your 2 hits, whereas Eviolite, you might have to do a little bit of damage calculations in your head to figure out just how that would work out.
Yeah, and the fact that you're able to get that second turn, you can use Quash a second time, which would potentially let yourself get a KO or 2 on the opposing side, especially while you have that extra time, because you also have to worry about something like a Koraidon also just going for a Orichalcum Pulse boosted Flare Blitz with Terra Fire in the sun. You also see the Munkidori. I also know that Jacob Teague really loves Jamie Boyd. Shout out to Jamie Boyd, who is on the Birmingham regional cast this weekend. The Munkidori is definitely one of the more interesting picks, especially with the Brute Bonnet on the side as well, where you have Psychic, U-turn to just get that good pivot out. We do have Choice Band Koraidon, so being able to pivot out and repivot back into Choice Band Koraidon, maybe potentially reset up the sun is going to be very important, because you have 3 different photosynthesis Pokemon, so you really want the sun up at all times.
Yeah, and I think that weather control is going to be very difficult for Jacob, as Koraidon, while it does have access to U-turn, none of the Pokemon that he's bringing into this battle are really bulky. You have the Assault Vest on the Munkidori, so we'll have to see how that fares against the team that Jonathan's bringing. But still, what looks like these trainers are ready to jump into it, so let's go ahead and see what their leads are.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. Because of the weather war, you don't necessarily want to bring the Koraidon in early, because if the Pelipper does come in, it is slower, therefore it will get the rain out first. But we are going to be seeing the Koraidon initially. No Pelipper on the side of Jonathan. We're going to be seeing Koraidon and the Munkidori. On Jacob's side, well, we see Ting-Lu and Chien-Pao, so those Ruin Pokemon initial start.
Yeah, and that's certainly an interesting lead for Jonathan to bring into this battle, as the Ting-Lu is really the bulkiest Pokemon on that team, will be holding the Assault Vest item, and can provide some decent support to what it's facing off against on the field. I think the big question I have, though, is whether or not it can take an attack from this Koraidon with all of those boosts that you were describing. Orichalcum Pulse does boost Koraidon's attack by 30% in the sunlight, so that's a 30% on top of the boost that Choice Band brings. So it's possible that close combat is going to be able to one-shot it. And then you also have Chien-Pao on the field, which means that the Ting-Lu is going to be suffering from a bit lower defenses as well.
Let's see what happens. Terastallization is going to be going onto the field, our first one of this first match of round 3. It's going to be the Ting-Lu, so we're going to be seeing Tera Water maybe trying to keep itself safe from those close combats. Oh, actually, no, my mistake. It would be
close combat.
Oh,
yeah.
It is close combat.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Yes. So it's actually not going to be its signature move. We do see the fake out into Chien-Pao. That is generally safe because it is Terra Stellar, so Chien-Pao would either have to protect or give it up the Focus Sash. It will get poisoned and flinch in this turn, so unfortunately the Chien-Pao is going to be taking a little bit more damage than it wants to. U-turn going to be switching the Koraidon out into the back, and let's see what's going to be coming in very soon, Gabby.
Yeah, I think Jacob did a great job there of respecting the fact that Jonathan could switch in the Pelipper at any given point in time, and just knowing that your Koraidon is naturally faster, especially when you don't have to worry about the Chien-Pao, means U-turn is pretty safe there.
Yep, and a Stomping Tantrum going to be super effective into this Munkidori and just barely surviving on low HP in the red. You know, despite Munkidori being a relatively frail Pokemon and even having the Assault Vest, so one would assume that it's a little bit more bulky than it normally would. Even on Ting-Lu, with the Chien-Pao Sword of Ruin being activated too, it still survives this turn.
Yeah, and I think now Jacob's in a great position to go on the offense, and that's exactly why they pivoted in the Walking Wake. You know, with Life Orb plus the Photosynthesis boost, we're going to be seeing a lot of damage coming out from that Pokemon, assuming it's able to hit its target. Unfortunately, though, Chien-Pao will protect, blocking all damage this turn.
Yep, Hydro Steam into the block. Let's see the Sludge Bomb. Not going to be doing as much damage due to the fact that it is the Vessel of Ruin lowering the special attack. But we see another Toxic Chain. A very low percentage chance of that actually connecting, but that's going to be 2 for 2 in 2 attacks. The Snarl does come out, hits the double connect. The Munkidori is going to be falling to the Snarl, while the Walking Wake will take a small bit of chip damage, and crucially, that special defense is going to be going down.
I think what's the most interesting point of the battle so far is that Jacob has revealed a lot of their approach to this game. We've seen the Munkidori, we've seen the Koraidon, and while we will see the Koraidon return to the field right now, I think that if Jonathan does have that Pelipper in the back and weather control is something that he wants to look for in this matchup, this is the perfect time to reveal that. Now, if you're watching closely, you might be thinking something different, but you have to look at Jacob's perspective and just how he's been managing the weather throughout this matchup. And Koraidon is definitely likely to go for a U-turn again if Jacob is worried about that weather switch.
Yeah, because you don't want to be trapped in a situation
Yes.
where you're stuck with, you know, Flare Blitz or close combat while Pelipper switches in. Both are actually resisted by Pelipper, which is not very favorable. And then you also have to consider that on Jacob's side that they do still have Terastallization.
Yep.
Do you know by chance if it is Speed Booster Walking Wake or Special Attack Boosting Walking Wake?
So we did see Walking Wake enter the field, and we saw the speed get boosted up by the sunlight.
That's going to be very crucial to note that the Walking Wake most likely is going to be faster than a Chien-Pao with only a Focus Sash, even with maximum speed output. Let's see the Terastallization coming into the Koraidon, that Terra Fire, potentially going to be outputting maximum amount of damage, maybe with the Flare Blitz, but we'll just have to see.
I think the other nice thing about this Terra Fire in this situation is that if you do need a little bit more damage to deal with the opposing side of the field, you now have access to that. But it is Breaking Swipe, which will drop the attack stat of the Ting-Lu and the Urshifu by 1 stage each, and just do some nice damage mitigation for Jacob. Stomping Tantrum, though, now will connect with the Koraidon, but again, because of that attack drop, and also so close with the toxic damage taking it down, but still, Jacob again still in a fantastic place, assuming Jonathan cannot gain control of the weather.
I would actually imagine that Jacob would like to keep the Ting Lu on the field so that the Chien-Pao doesn't get a free switch, while you also have the Urshifu on the right-hand side for Jonathan. So now that the Ting Lu does not have Protect because it does carry this Assault Vest,
Yep.
it is more than likely stuck on the field. You're not going to want to switch it out into another Breaking Swipe. If Urshifu wants to go for close combat, it's already taken a Breaking Swipe, so it might not actually pick up a KO onto either Pokemon at -1 attack.
That's correct, yeah. So Jonathan's in a really tough position. I think it's to his benefit that the poison will knock out Ting Lu no matter what this turn. That being said, though, I don't see why Jacob wouldn't just continue to attack with the Walking Wake in particular, because there's really nothing on the field from Jonathan that threatens it at this point in time. And we do get the reveal of Jacob's final Pokemon, and interestingly enough, it's the Murkrow, which is not necessarily a Pokemon you'd expect to see as a closer.
Yeah, we do see the Dragon Pulse getting the hit first, going into that Urshifu, which does have the Scarf, so that's going to be important information for later. Looks like it was going to be a stopping tantrum from the Ting Lu into the Koraidon, trying to get some more damage in. Unfortunately, the Murkrow does switch in for Jacob's side, not going to be getting any damage in. The Poison Chip from that Toxic Chain on the Munkidori is going to be taking down the Ting Lu at 4 HP. And now we're going to be seeing a double switch. Chien-Pao and the Zamazenta in the back are going to be Jonathan's last 2 Pokemon of this first match.
So the Murkrow is something I want to take a moment to talk about here, because like other Prankster Pokemon, it does have access to some of the weather setting moves, and this Murkrow in particular has access to Sunny Day. And when you consider Jacob saving that Pokemon in the back and not revealing it until really the last possible moment in this Game 1, I think that decision was because they expected the Pelipper to come in at that point in time. So Jacob really has done a fantastic job of managing this weather war. Unfortunately, Jonathan does not want to play that game, which is now something you have to puzzle through, but at least you have the benefit of the Photosynthesis boost on your Walking Wake to ensure that you are the fastest Pokemon on the field. It's just a matter of how much damage can you realistically do against Zamazenta and Chien-Pao.
Yep. We're going to be seeing the Tailwind coming through from the Murkrow, going to be giving that extra speed advantage for Jacob's side of the field. Iso Crash going to be connecting into the Murkrow. It does have that Focus Sash, so despite being a little bit more of a frail Pokemon, it does survive on 1 HP. Let's see what the Zamazenta is going to do. It's actually going to decide to go for an Iron Defense, trying to play the slow game, understanding that if you did go for a double attack into the Murkrow, you give a free switch on a Tailwind, Koraidon comes in, and now you're stuck.
Jacob is kind of stuck too, though. I mean, now that the sun is gone, the Murkrow will be forced to either set it up via Sunny Day, go one turn without the speed boost, which you may not need anymore now that Tailwind's on there, or you could just try and maybe switch something around. But realistically speaking, you don't want to switch Koraidon onto the field in this position because you do not want to be taking any damage. Every single turn, though, that you're stuck in this position is another opportunity for the opposing Zamazenta to go for those iron defenses and really give Jonathan his best way out at this point in the game. You want this Zamazenta to be able to take out the opposing Walking Wake and really the Walking Wake and the Koraidon in the back, but it's just going to be really hard for it to find that damage unless it gets these defense boosts up.
Yep, and now Sunny Day going to be activated. The manual sun is going to be rising and coming out into this beautiful landscape. The Hydro Steam, now that it has that photosynthesis speed boost, going to be outspeeding the Chien-Pao. Chien-Pao does not opt to go for Protect. Going to be falling to that attack. It's now going to be a 3v1 with the Zamazenta having that +2. Body Press going to be connecting into this Walking Wake, going to be picking up the KO from about 65% HP. The Murkrow still going to be hanging onto the field of that 1 HP from the Focus Sash. Koraidon going to be switching in. It's crucial to note that the Zamazenta does have that +2, but we are also dealing with a Koraidon with the Orichalcum Pulse activated, giving it that extra bit of damage. Terra Fire activated with that Flare Blitz. Who knows if that could even get a one-hit KO?
If it gets a critical hit, it certainly will,
Correct.
which is always a possibility and something that you have to be mindful of when you're running these more stat boost heavy teams. That being said, you really don't need a critical hit if you're just the Koraidon with all of those boosts that we were talking about, and Jacob has found a way to win game number 1 in the set.
Yeah, it's very similar to Raging Bolt when you have that Electric Terrain active, while you have that Life Orb active, while you get those multipliers on your same type attack bonus and on your Terra Electric, where you're just able to output so much damage. But now instead of the Raging Bolt, now it's just going to be this Koraidon that can do so much physical damage in this weather.
Exactly, and that was honestly why I was a little bit surprised to see Jonathan take that approach to Game 1. You know, I think Zamazenta is a very powerful Pokemon, but it needs a lot of time on the field to get those iron defenses up, to sort of boost itself before it has to face off against those other Pokemon. And just by having it in the back, there just wasn't enough time.
Yeah, and I think the real game changer came down to the speed advantage that Jacob was able to control.
That's
While you had that Sun Up, you didn't have the Pelipper active at all.
Yep.
So really, Jonathan was not playing with any speed control or speed ability to change that speed control on your side of the field. Whereas Jacob had Walking Wake with the Photosynthesis, most likely going to be keeping the Sun Up because obviously Pelipper is not there. But even if Pelipper was there and was able to offer Tailwind, you can counter Tailwind with Murkrow. Maybe you could get the Sun Up again, and then you're outspeeding everything again. So it's really going to come down to, if the Pelipper does come, how can you maneuver yourself in a situation where you're just going to just outspeed your opponent?
Yeah, I'm glad that you also brought up the fact that there was sort of the dual Sunsetters on Jacob's side, because Jacob, in my opinion, really revealed their hand in that previous matchup, just showing how they're approaching this. I do think that Jonathan has a lot of tools on his side of the field in order to make this matchup easier. You know, we saw the Urshifu with the Choice Scarf being a later game adaptation, but one thing that I want to call out, if we could go ahead and take a look at Jonathan's team, if that's okay, thank you very much, production, is the fact that the Urshifu has Choice Scarf and Coaching. Now, if you're looking for a way to maybe boost up your Zamazenta a little bit more aggressively, you could always lead Urshifu Zamazenta, go for that Coaching, and maybe just hope that your opponent doesn't have that Koraidon right off the bat. If you are concerned about the Koraidon, you can go ahead and lead the Pelipper plus the Urshifu, and then you have to force your opponent to make one turn of switching, because Murkrow was in the back. What are the odds that your opponent's going to lead that Pokemon in Game 2? There's a lot of adjustments that Jonathan can make while bringing the same Pokemon that will lead to a better matchup overall.
And something I would like to mention now with Jonathan's team, because that Jonathan is playing against Jacob, who's playing this Koraidon, look at the Terra types you have on your team for Jonathan. You have Terra, Grass, Zamazenta, so no matter what, even if you Terra or you don't, you're going to be taking that super effective damage from that Flare Blitz. So that's very concerning. Obviously, with close combat, you could get rid of it if it decided to Choice Lock into that close combat, but that's still going to be a same type attack bonus boosted move. You have 3 Terra Waters, so you can really only get the resist on one of them.
Here we go. This is going to be game number 2 in round 3 here at Balance Patch, and we're starting things off with both of Jacob's Sunsetters on the field with the Koraidon and the Murkrow versus the Urshifu Rapid Strike and the Zamazenta on Jonathan's side of the field.
Yeah, and this is what you're talking about with that aggressive coaching. Now that you should have the coaching ability to go first, as I was just mentioning, because Zamazenta is Terra Grass, not Terra Dragon, you don't get that natural resist on your Terra type. So the Koraidon could actually get that Tailwind boost, decide to go into the Zamazenta. The Zamazenta's real only options are, I have to protect, or I switch out, which is not really giving you any pressure against your opponent. It's not gaining you any ground to win this match.
Exactly, and that's why if I were in Jonathan's shoes, I'd be tempted to maybe lean on the Urshifu a little bit more aggressively. If you did bring that Pelipper in the back, switch the Pelipper in for the Zamazenta, and just hope that the opposing Murkrow doesn't just use Sunny Day. I know sometimes in this position, trainers will try and call that, and I think the protect here on the Zamazenta is Jonathan just trying to see how Jacob is approaching this, but it was Quash actually, so regardless of speed control, that Zamazenta would be going last, which is again another utility that this Murkrow brings to the battle.
Yeah, we're going to be seeing a close combat actually going into the Murkrow, so going to be locking itself with that Choice Scarf, so it's still going to be faster for now. The Murkrow with Quash, so trying to really get that speed advantage going into that Zamazenta, but it looks like it's going to be a double target into the Zamazenta, surviving this turn alone.
I will say it's a little bit of a unique choice that Jacob went directly for Quash as opposed to setting up something like Tailwind, which would persist for a couple more turns. I don't know if that's maybe an indication of how Jacob thinks their opponent is approaching the match, or if there's something else going on, but definitely something to keep in mind as we go into this turn 2.
I would have to imagine that Jacob knew that that would be the situation, that you can go for Quash. You're probably going to want to stall this Tailwind on actually using it, not just stalling against a counter Tailwind, so that you gain more speed advantage turns later in this match. So going for Quash was more of a, I don't really have a better play. I could go for Foul Play and maybe do some chip, but that's not really gaining me anything.
True, yeah, you don't necessarily want to be using Foul Play at this point in time. Pelipper is an adjustment here from Jonathan as we get the first terastallization of the game onto the Murkrow into a Ghost-type Pokemon. So Jacob making a very heavy read here that the second close combat will be targeting that Murkrow. And it also goes for Sunny Day, so correctly calling the switch in there as well.
Yeah, now that the Sun is back up, Orichalcum Pulse is going to be boosting that damage with the Koraidon. Obviously, no extra damage from that Terra Fire, but it does not matter. It is still going to be a one-hit KO in the Sun against a resisted Rapid Strike Urshifu. It's going to be going down. It doesn't matter if the Pelipper comes in if the Sun isn't there. So
yeah, and now this Pelipper's in a really tough spot because you don't necessarily want to switch in your Zamazenta to potentially take a Flare Blitz, and the Chien-Pao doesn't want to be the target of that attack either. I like that the Chien-Pao is the Pokemon that's on the field right now, as I do think that forces the Murkrow to go for it has to be a Tailwind because Chien-Pao is a Dark-type Pokemon and Quash won't necessarily work against it. Which gives Pelipper the opportunity to try to match that Tailwind and just buy Jonathan like one more turn to try and find a way around this Koraidon. But really the oppression that this Koraidon brings to this matchup cannot be understated.
Yeah, its name is giving you the reason why it's so good in this matchup. One thing I did want to point out is that the Pelipper is in a very tough situation, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
You can't really switch it out to get in the Zamazenta, otherwise it could be eating an attack from either Pokemon realistically. Yep. Right now the Pelipper's only options are survive, maybe.
It
just
does.
barely.
It
yeah.
does.
Well, it has a Weather Ball, which is going to be doing that fire type damage instead. Hurricane you could use, but Hurricane actually loses accuracy in the Sun.
It does.
It goes from 70 to 50% accurate, so do you want to risk that? You might have to do that coin flip if you really want to get rid of the Koraidon off this field.
It is a way to remove that Koraidon from the field, but I like how Jonathan is taking a turn to at least match the Tailwind from the opponent.
Okay, let's see. The Murkrow did go down to that Throat Chop on Chien-Pao. Not a move you typically see. And now Monkey Dory is coming onto the field, so another awesome, unique Pokemon we're going to be seeing. It does have that Fake Out, so the Pelipper with no Protect is vulnerable to getting hit by a Fake Out, potentially going to be sending the Koraidon, not the Koraidon, the Zamazenta in. Or you could just go for a switch off the Pelipper, maybe try to set up the Sun later, now that the manual Sun on the Murkrow is gone.
It's still not necessarily a switch you want to make, though, because there is no reason for Jacob to not target down that slot. You have to look at the fact that Monkey Dory does have Fake Out available to it. I think if you're really worried about this turn, you have to try and find the opportunity to just keep these two Pokemon around, which means you have to protect the Chien-Pao, and you just have to hope that Pelipper is able to just find an opening here.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a risky situation.
Yeah.
The Monkey Dory using that Fake Out could have been a Terra Ghost. Actually, no, it was Terra Stellar Chien-Pao, my mistake. So yeah, Fake Out there would have generally always been safe in that situation. We do see the Flare Blitz going into that Pelipper. It will take a little bit of Rocky Helmet recoil and recoil from the Flare Blitz itself, but still going to be hanging on with just enough HP to survive the turn. And now going to be facing down a Chien-Pao that is already protected, so can't guarantee a Protect in this next turn, and the Zamazenta, again, cannot take a Flare Blitz at all.
It is good that the Koraidon is so low on Jacob's side of the field. We do see that Chien-Pao has access to Sucker Punch, so that could be one easy way for Jonathan to remove the threat of that Pokemon and open things up for the Zamazenta to start going on the offensive. Zamazenta is also still a Steel-type Pokemon right now. It's fighting Steel, and because of that, it means that it can't be poisoned by the Monkey Dory, so there's also that opportunity there. Really, Jonathan is in the perfect spot to focus down on this Koraidon and just ignore the Monkey Dory for the time being, as there's really nothing it can do against the Zamazenta in particular, which is Jonathan's last stand at this point in time.
Oh, I actually don't know if Jonathan timed out there. It looks like the Terra did go through, so we will be seeing a Terra.
Yeah, he didn't time out if the Terra worked.
Okay, so yeah, no timeout. So, because I was very concerned because the timer was getting very low. Something that we didn't mention was there's actually a Sucker Punch mining game. Because the Koraidon is so low, there is no Sucker Punch now, but that's something both players had to think about. The Monkey Dory actually going to be going down to the Stellar boosted Throat Chop. One hit KO. Body Press actually going to be going into this Koraidon, and now Jonathan, for the first time, has a Pokemon advantage 2-1 with that Chien-Pao and Zamazenta.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm a little bit curious if the Stellar Terra actually mattered to that Monkey Dory. I don't know my Monkey Dory counts, apologies.
I think the only one that would know is Jamie Boy.
Very true, very true. I do think that it's great that you still have the Ice-type Terastallization boost for the last Pokemon on Jacob's side of the field, which was revealed to be that Walking Wake. But we're still in a position where that Jonathan has to worry, because with Hydro Steam still available, you could see some decent damage, and that's exactly what we do see into the Zamazenta. But in a 2v1 situation here, I don't think there's... Oh, I might have just commentated cursed that.
I still think it's the end of the match, because in total, in the 2v1, Hydro Steam would need to hit the Zamazenta one more time, and then you need to hit the Chien-Pao twice because of the Focus Sash. Yeah, so that's your only out. I do like that Jacob decided to play it out to actually gain information on how much Hydro Steam could do into Zamazenta, because that was actually a situation that happened in the first game that we could have seen, but now that Jacob knows that it is a 2-hit KO in the Sun specifically, that is good information to know later if you have to go down that route.
For sure, and I think we're in a really interesting spot in game number 3, because, you know, looking at the strategies that both these trainers brought in the previous games, you know, we mentioned that Jacob sort of revealed their hand in game number 1, bringing both those weather setters. We saw Jacob continue that in game 2, just leading them both that time. And we did see Jonathan as well make that adaptation to bring the Pelipper. So if you think about what we saw, and if you think about how one may think game 3 goes, we might see the Koraidon and the Murkrow again in the front and the back for Jacob, and then have the Pelipper sort of in the middle of that, which will give these trainers a little bit more playability, and I think a little bit more of an interesting matchup in game 3, because it'll be more of a responsive kind of gameplay, as opposed to just a, oh, well, this is the lead, I can't get weather.
Yeah, I believe the Koraidon and Murkrow was the correct play, especially early on, but I think the thing that kind of hampered on Jacob winning that match was not bringing in the Walking Wake to really put more pressure, because you kept the Koraidon into the field the entire game until it went down, so you weren't able to get a good switch, because once the Monkey Dory came in, your only switch to get Koraidon off the field to reset the choice band was Walking Wake. And Walking Wake is not generally a good switch target, because it is so frail, and you want to be able to get it onto the field for free to really get that benefit on those Draco Meteors, those Hydro Steams, Dragon Pulse, or even just a good Protect to let Koraidon come back in on another Pokemon. Because the Monkey Dory came in, you really didn't have a good option, so maybe Jacob needs to try some more pivoting.
I think so, but it is very difficult, I will say, to pivot, especially when you're playing against a team that has a Pokemon like Zamazenta that can take advantage of those passive turns to use Iron Defense and set its offensive power way up higher. And it also feels like Jacob is in a bit of a tough spot where you can't necessarily make adjustments to Gouging Fire or Brute Bonnet, knowing that you have to have these powerful special attackers to mitigate the threat of the Zamazenta. And as we go into game number 3, we do see Jacob make an adjustment with that Walking Wake and the Monkey Dory out in the lead, but Jonathan matches that adjustment with a Zamazenta and a Rillaboom lead. So we're really looking at a different game at this point in time.
Yeah, we haven't seen the Rillaboom at all, so it's going to be a very interesting game change. It's not the Assault Vest Rillaboom that we commonly see. It is going to be the Grassy Seed Rillaboom that does increase its grass-type attacks by a little bit. I'm not sure how much it's going to matter here, because there are some resists, but, you know, still getting that extra damage is going to be pretty useful. The Protect is going to be coming on to Zamazenta, just trying to protect it from the potential fake out. Do we see a 3-for-3 Chalk Exchange? No, we do not, and it is going to be surviving the turn. Hydro Steam going to be going into the Zamazenta, trying to get that decent chip damage, and let's see what the Rillaboom's going to do. It is going to get the flinch from the fake out.
Yeah, but it didn't go for its own fake out there, which I think is great information for Jacob, because if you look at Jonathan's team sheet, it has to be Woodhammer, you know, or U-turn. You know, we didn't see the priority boost from a Grassy Glide, so Rillaboom using U-turn could be a great opportunity for Jonathan to pivot into something that could go on the offense against the Walking Wake or the Monkey Dory, and especially now that we know Rillaboom's the slowest Pokemon on the field, that means that switch is pretty safe. You're not going to take damage for it, and if we go back to game 1, we were talking about how Jonathan was really struggling with that pivoting. So this is just one opportunity for him to open up up a way for the Chen Pao or the Urshifu to come on the field, or the Tinglu or the Pelipper, or really whatever he's brought to this match.
We are going to see an interesting early terrestrialization. The Rillaboom is going to be going for Terra Water, most likely trying to keep itself a little bit safe from that Sludge Bomb on the Munkidori, which would do a lot more damage now that it is not carrying that Assault Vest that it normally does have. Iron Defense going to be increasing the Zamazenta's defense by so much. It's now at +3 defense. We're going to be seeing the U-turn going to be going with the Munkidori, getting that pivot. What would have to assume to be the Koraidon just to set up the Sun, give that Walking Wake that boost now in damage if it were to go for a Hydro Steam.
It could also be the Murkrow, though. I mean, we'll have to see what Pokemon it is, and that is going to be the Murkrow from Jacob. So still has the potential to set up the Sun, but certainly could take a Woodhammer a lot better, though the target ends up being the Walking Wake.
Yeah, so now that the Murkrow is there, you have Manual Sun, which is really good. There's Jacob does not know if there's a Pelipper at all, and there's clearly nothing coming in on this turn at least. You do have the Quash, so you could try to gain the speed advantage on any Pokemon. That's probably not your best interest. I would assume that Sunny Day is most likely going to be what's coming through with the Murkrow, but it's really good what's going to be coming through with the Walking Wake, because you also have those Dragon-type attacks. Rillaboom's not Assault Vest. Could a same type attack bonus Draco Meteor get a one-hit KO onto Rillaboom, maybe?
You know, that is a very powerful attack, and I feel like every time someone's like, well, how much will Draco Meteor do? And it's a Pokemon like Raging Bolt, I'm like, enough.
And here it is.
So here it is, and it's
no,
not enough.
Wow. Even with the Life Orb, still not going to get the one-hit KO from full HP, so it's going to be going down on a critical hit. I don't believe it would have mattered because that Zamazenta is at +3 defense, so most likely would have done enough. We do see the foul play, so no usage of Quash, no usage of Tailwind or Sunny Day, just going to be getting that final bit of damage. I think Jacob might have expected Rillaboom to survive that attack. So just getting that extra bit of damage to really get that Rillaboom off the field. So no more fake out pressure, no more terrain. So it's gone from the field, but you still have to worry about everything else that's coming in too.
Yeah, that is one nice thing about Scarlet and Violet and some of the newer Pokemon games is that if you double target into a Pokemon that faints, your second Pokemon automatically targets the other one. So a lot of times you'll see trainers take a strategy like this where you just double tap the Pokemon you're really worried about. And then if you do somehow get that one-hit knockout, your Murkrow is smart enough to maybe not attack the empty space on the field. Now
we're in a situation where currently the Sun is now active, so Sunny Day is probably not going to be used. The Murkrow most likely wants to either go for its other three moves, Foul Play, Quash, or Tailwind. Tailwind, I think, would most likely be the best because then you get to have that really good speed advantage for what would likely be the next 3 turns, but the rest of this game could only last for another 3 turns, Gabby.
The other thing that I'm curious about is knowing it's Choice Scarf or Urshifu on the opposing side of the field, just how much the Surging Strikes would do with the Sun on the field. Because Murkrow could be in a position where it's guaranteed to take 2 attacks, especially now that the Zamazenta has used Protect on Jonathan's side of the field. So you don't necessarily have to go for your setup moves, but it looks like Jacob actually made a prediction there that the Pelipper was the final Pokemon for Jonathan. Tried to reset Sunny Day and unfortunately opened up the opportunity for Jonathan to use coaching, which I think is a great, again, it's a great opportunity. That burn is unfortunate, but Urshifu's locked into coaching anyway.
That is a low chance to actually get the burn on a Flare Blitz. That is not something you typically see that on Incineroar most of the time where you get that burn, but a Koraidon, that's even more rare. That's actually going to impact this game a little bit more than we would have thought, because now, even if the Koraidon were to go for Terrifier, really try to get that extra damage onto this Zamazenta or even the Urshifu, Urshifu's output damage on both Surging Strikes in close combat, which are the moves that it's most likely going to be using. Well, it's actually choice locked into coaching, so it's only able to use coaching.
Like
I mean, it wouldn't be able to use moves as effect.
Like at this point, I feel like you're okay just going for coaching until your opponent stops you. I mean, we saw Jonathan check the stats on that Zamazenta. It's at +4 defense. It's at +1 attack. You're pretty happy if you're a Zamazenta with taking a couple more boosts, and especially knowing that the Murkrow can't go on the offense and does indeed set up Tailwind for Munkidori's benefit. You just get another free coaching.
Yes.
Yeah. And then that doesn't do that much to the Munkidori, but still, we're on our way.
Yeah, we're getting there. We're getting there.
We're getting there.
I believe the Zamazenta is at I want to say +5. Yeah, +5.
Yeah.
Thank you, June, for giving us the number, because it was the initial, because the Zamazenta has been on the field since the beginning of the match, so it's got that +1. Iron Defense gives it +3, and it's gotten 2 coaching.
It had 1, and then it just got it second.
Yes, so it's at 5. So it's only got 1 more to use. And surprisingly, the Monkey Dory was able to eat a +5 body press, and it still could take another one pretty comfortably. And now that the Tailwind is actually up, both the Monkey Dory is actually going to be fastest thing on the field. So the Sludge Bomb into the Urshifu is a real threat. You also have that Fake Out. Even a U-turn to potentially get the Koraidon in. Obviously, you probably won't want to go for that. We do see the Fake Out. No chain, Toxic Chain because of the steel typing. Crit probably doesn't matter all that much. You know, you take the damage, though. But a great foul play getting rid of that Focus Sash.
Not only just a great foul play to get rid of the Focus Sash, I think this also opens up a bit more playability for Monkey Dory in particular, because now it threatens some decent damage against the Chien-Pao with the Sludge Bomb. It also has Psychic to deal damage to the opposing Zamazenta, which won't do as much, but certainly won't be worried about all the defensive boosts that we've seen that Pokemon get. That being said, though, I think Jacob's win condition is that they really have to find the opportunity for Koraidon to get back out into the field and be able to confidently lock into a single move in order to take out the opposition. So really, as much chip damage as you can get on the Zamazenta at this point in time, I think is your best bet. And if you keep the Chien-Pao around, I mean, you do have to worry about its typing and how it's going to deal really big damage to the Murkrow in particular, but the defense boost of Sword of Ruin could be beneficial. Instead, though, just knocked out by Sludge Bomb.
Yeah, I mean, Monkey Dory, people don't know, but its special attack is actually relatively high with that Sludge Bomb on its same attack bonus, actually going to be doing a lot of damage. The Murkrow, doesn't matter how strong that body press is, it could be +100. It's not going to be able to get rid of that Murkrow on one hit because of that Focus Sash. Going to be staying on the field. Tailwind still going to be active. So now, I would have to say, Sludge Bomb and Urshifu is probably the most obvious answer. Get rid of the Urshifu from the field. And then Zamazenta has to clean up the rest of this game. Somehow. But it is in the best possible position for it to do so. It's almost at maximum defensive boost. We know that the Koraidon on Jacob's side of the field is going to have to use Flare Blitz to deal damage. So at that point in time, depending on how the Sunlight turns work out, which admittedly I haven't been taking good notes on in this match, so apologies. If you can stall out the Sun and then get unsun boosted Flare Blitzes, I think the Zamazenta will actually win in that condition. Unless you get like 2 or 3 critical hits. Yeah, it depends on... Whoa, interesting switch. The Murkrow going to be switching out into the Koraidon, so Koraidon's not going to wait for a Pokemon to get knocked out to go for a safe switch in, just deciding to say, I'm just going to go into this match. Psychic, going to be the choice of attack, going to go into this Urshifu, pick up that KO. Now, what's going to happen? Is it going to be Body Press or Heavy Slam into this Koraidon? It's going to be Heavy Slam into the Monkey Dory. With that extra +2, it's going to be picking up that KO. And now Murkrow coming back into this match as the second to last Pokemon for Jacob. It's certainly an interesting adaptation here to send in the Koraidon in that position. A little bit risky, especially knowing that that was the last turn of Sun. I think personally, I would say let the Murkrow go down so the Koraidon can come in for free, and then you're still in the same endgame where you have the Sun up. It is 2v1, which is nice, but I think the big question that I have is whether or not Foul Play is going to make a big difference in the end. I don't think so personally. I think that we're going to see the Sunny Day into the Flare Blitz and then just how that's going to play out. Yep. Mind you, Jacob has not Terastallized at all, so Sunny Day, Terastallized boosted Flare Blitz. It's coming down to the wire. The Orichalcum boost is definitely going to give it that other multiplier that's going to matter. It's really going to come down to how tanky is this Zamazenta naturally, and how much is that going to be affecting that +5 boost. That's going to be key. Yeah. Tailwind is actually going to be used to guarantee faster. So maybe Jacob's Koraidon might not be faster naturally, or maybe just trying to guarantee it. Flare Blitz coming through. Here it comes. Nowhere near enough. Needed a crit. It needed a crit, it needed the Sun, and then it might have needed a little bit more. And because of all the defensive boosts, the Body Press is going to be enough to lock in that knockout and give Jonathan the win in round 3 here at Balance Patch. Yeah, Foul Play on a resist on a fighting type is nowhere near getting enough damage. So even if you try to get those crits, bypassing that defense is not really going to be helping you too much. Quash just going to be used, just playing out the game.
He's
oh,
they're
he's
petting the dog. They're petting the dog.
Oh, yes. Good dog. The dog is going to be helping Jonathan move to a 2-run record at Balance Patch. Congrats to Jonathan for winning round 3.
I really like how Jonathan made those adaptations in Game 3 and how Jonathan recognized that the Weather War wasn't exactly the game that he wanted to play, and I think it worked out very well.
Yeah.
It was really just those couple of passive turns where we saw the iron defense into those coachings that gave Zamazenta the edge, to the point where I think Jacob was trying to think through whether or not going for the crit off the Tailwind, where you're guaranteed faster, would be enough, or if there were some speed interactions in play there, which is a very tough call to make for sure.
Zamazenta is actually a scarily fast Pokemon.
Just
a lot of people don't invest in its speed because its defenses are so good. And you would have to imagine with Jacob going for Tailwind, especially in that in-game situation, you would probably not want to risk losing that interaction where maybe you do just have to go for a critical hit Flare Blitz as your win condition, because if you're not faster, you lose that no matter what. So, but you were never in a situation in the other games where you could really decipher the information. So that information game kept Jacob in like a sea of fog, wasn't able to really decipher what the best outcome of the game was.
Honestly, it's possible that the Walking Wake and the Zamazenta were a good indication of how those speeds were trained for Jacob, but you know, I think that it's great to show just that Zamazenta isn't necessarily a one-dimensional Pokemon. You can run it with Iron Defense. You can run it to be very fast, sort of like what you'd see from Zacian in past formats. And it has a lot of playability, which is really exciting. So I know that we've been seeing a lot of weather here.
Yes,
at
a
least
lot of weather.
Locals. But I do think that Zamazenta is probably one of the best Pokemon in Regulation G at this point in time, and it can kind of ignore the weather, and that's why.
Yeah, great analysis, Gabby.
Thank you.
We're going to be taking a quick break. We'll get round 4 paired up very soon, so stay tuned and don't go anywhere.